Welcome to the Creative Resistance Podcast, home to deep dive conversations with the artists, activists and thinkers who refuse to look away. Each episode sees me, Scott Cassidy, explore how guests are using their creativity to challenge injustice, build community and spark direct action to empower and effect change. We're straight out of the traps and setting the bar sky high with episode 1's guest, Nadine Shah. Nadine is a Mercury Prize nominated songwriter and musician who released her 5th critically acclaimed album, Filthy Underneath, in spring of 2024, which Louder Than War described as glorious, broken beauty, and for which The Guardian called her one of the most extraordinary voices in British indie. BBC Six Music love her, and she's recently been on Jools Holland and RTE'S Other Voices with a full band. She's collaborated and shared a bill with Young Fathers, Massive Attack, Depeche Mode, Patti Smith, Annie Lennox, New Order and Elbow, and recently appeared as a guest vocalist with the Pogues and touring their Sodomy and the Lash album across the UK and Europe, and she has a tattoo to prove it. This summer, she played Glastonbury, and at the time of recording, she's supporting Self-Esteem, with whom she also recently collaborated. She's presented at the Q Awards, on programmes for Six Music, BBC Sounds and Radio 4, and she has some serious acting chops too, appearing as Titania in Matthew Dunster's Midsummer's Night Dream. She's in the upcoming film Night and Day, based on Virginia Woolf's novel with Lily Allen, and regularly composes music for TV and film. Her albums touch on subjects such as mental health, addiction, racism and identity. Nadine is no stranger to speaking out and has lent her voice to many other causes that she's passionate about. She recently spoke at the National March for Palestine in London and has done similar on many occasions up here in Edinburgh too. She's currently working on a new album and a new TV series set for release in 2026. Now, industry accolades aside, I know Nadine outside of this wee podcast bubble, and she's a bona fide brilliant human who cares deeply and is funny as fuck. We roam far and wide in this conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, warmest of welcomes to episode 1 of the Creative Resistance Podcast, and to my very first guest, the ever awesome Nadine Shah. How are you doing, pal?
Yeah, I'm good. Fair to middling. I'm just in Edinburgh and I'm going on tour on, is it Wednesday today? Yes. I'm going on tour on Friday.
Nice. Well, listen, thank you for squeezing this in. We're doing this online. I'm about 20 minutes away from you, but because I've got absolutely no gear, here we are online. So, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. It is, it's obviously a brand new project. It's amazing to have you as the first guest, and I'm keen for a deep dive into kind of all things creativity and to find out a bit more about the kind of activism that I know you've been doing recently. That sound all right?
Yeah, fine.
Nice one. Okay, the listeners will have already heard a spiel about what the podcast is, but it does have its roots in creativity, and I'm really interested in how that started for you. It's easy for all of us to see people that we look up to or that we enjoy, as fully formed, like bona fide creatives who just make it all look easy. But it has to start somewhere, and I'm really intrigued about how it all started for you.
I think, it is a question that's been asked a lot over the years, but I think also the older that I get, some memories that I didn't know existed have kind of started to reappear, which is odd because you'd think they'd be less vivid in your mind the older that you get. And actually, I think that the beginning of the real creativity was because of an illness that I had when I was younger. Whereas normally I tell people it's because I just had this big voice, and because that's the thing that I had that set me out again. It was the one thing that was kind of unique to me out of everybody else in my school. So then you become the singer. Oh, it's the singer. And then the rest kind of falls in place. But the creativity, I think it did stem from this illness that I had. So I think I was 8 or 9 years old, and I had a disease called Henox purpura. It's when your immune system goes against you. And so I was really poorly. I was in hospital for about 3 months. I'd lost the use of my legs. So my wheelchair skills are still pretty fly. They're all right. And I have really fond memories of that time because I got spoilt rotten. I ended up having my own room in the hospital, and it was fun, and I'd get loads of gifts sent to me. And it was just me and a bunch of other sick kids running feral together around these wards. Honestly, a lot of it I just remember as a really lovely time. My mammy's passed away, and I'm sure she would have told you that it's the most harrowing time in her life, seeing her little girl be that ill.
Terrifying.
Yeah. But it was just, for me, it was a very fun time, actually, being that time in hospital. I only remember the good bits. So maybe that's a good thing. But I do remember, like, after that as well, my mum was so worried about me becoming poorly again that she kind of wrapped me in cotton wool a little bit. So I didn't, if people were going ice skating, I couldn't go ice skating. If they're playing out, I couldn't really play out. So I was a bit of a poorly sick kid. And there's a big age gap between me and my two older brothers. Well, big. There's 5 years and 7 years. They are my senior. And I think it just forced me to, because I had so much enforced time on my own, it does then make you have to be creative. Like, you are the only child. And playing with my voice was always one thing, Playing with instruments was always another thing. Listening to music with my mother. I'd listen to music with her all the time. So I was listening to Scott Walker and Nina Simone from a really young age, because they were two of her favorite artists. And I think it was all that time that made me much more creative. And I think it was then a case of, I always knew I was going to be making something and presenting it, whether it was putting on a play, or it was writing a song. It was always going to be some form of creating and presenting.
So it was always like packaged up, finished with something to present. That's fascinating. Yeah, definitely. And were you singing at that early age? Like, were you already the singer that you spoke about before when you were poorly? Was that something that kept you going?
And my mum, actually, it was a funny one. Have you ever seen the film Little Voice?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was it is still one of my favorite ever films. I think it's incredible. But it was kind of a case of that. So I'd go to my nana's house, my mammy's mammy. I would go to her house sometimes. My mum would go and do the shopping. She'd drop me off at my nana's, and my nana would play me Shirley Bassey and people like this. My mum would pick me up, would go home, and I'd be singing Shirley Bassey songs in the house. But my mum just assumed it was a recording she was listening to. She didn't know it was my voice for a really long time. So I think that I knew I could sing way before other people did. And I don't remember being a good singer when I was younger. I remember there was a girl called Sarah Louise Porteous, and she had Sarah Louise Porteous, who was she once teased me, and she called me Nadine Sardine. So I went back and told my mother, I was like, there's this lass, and she called me Nadine Sardine. And my mummy said, well, what's her name? I said, Sarah Louise Porteous. My mum said, well, you go back and you call her Sarah Weeby's Pantyhose.
Your mum sounds ace.
Sure. But there was always a desire to sing well, like Sarah Weeby's Pantyhose. But yeah, it's always been a thing, being able as the singer for a very, very long time, I think.
Yeah, I love that. And that thing of having space to create as well. I grew up as an only child, and I think that was key, that ability to just entertain yourself when you're on your own. Do you know what I mean? And actually have your own space and time to think and not just be bored. Do you know what I mean? It's important.
Loads of my favourite people are only children. And I think that a lot of them are quite eccentric. And I think that is because they did, well, also a lot of them did a lot of their growing up around adults, and that they just had to make their own form of fun and entertainment, which makes them, slightly more creative also.
Totally. Also, shout out your mum for the Nina Simone. My oldest daughter's Nina, named after Nina Simone. So as you all know. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's an awesome start, definitely. Interesting to hear that even at that stage, though, you were like keen to kind of package things up to have something to present. And I think one of the things, listen to your songs and, albums that you've produced in the past, it's easy when you kind of zoom out, see them as a finished body of work that tackle very specific topics. Whether that's kind of looking at nationalism and racism and identity, or whether that's looking at mental health and substance abuse and things like that. And I'm really interested in whether that's a conscious effort when you start to create. Are you thinking, I'm going to produce a body of work that's looking at these topics? Or is that a more organic process where that kind of comes together just because that's what's making you right at the time? What's that process like for you?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. I think that I think because that has been the case on the past 5 albums, that it's now I go, okay, what is this album about? Maybe I did that last time, but it just so happens that I tend to write them in a short period of time. Even if I've been writing the songs for, say, over a year and a half, I tend to go back and a lot of the time it's nonsensical lyrics. And then it's towards the end that I actually put all the lyrics together. So then there is a coherent theme.
Yeah.
And to me, it makes sense, but that can be quite, that's quite frustrating sometimes because, there's 10, 11, 12 songs in an album, and often I feel like I've explored that idea enough and I want to write about something else. But I like the idea of the album as a format and as such, that being a coherent body of work. I mean, so I think the next one is probably the only time I've ever wrote like a heartache album. When I've started a breakup album. And it's so funny because I got back together with my boyfriend during it and he started helping me with production on some of it as well, which was just that I'm singing these really sad songs to him, like, how dare you do this to me? But then now with the political climate, I'm finding it impossible not to write about what I see around me. But so often when you're writing about heartache, you can so often replace those two people with a political subject. You could look at it and think, oh, they're singing about this love affair and this heartache and they've split up. Whereas in fact, somebody might be singing about two countries or
political system.
Yeah.
Some idea. Yeah, totally. There's Kay Tempest's book On Connection.
Yeah.
It's easily the book I've gifted more than any other. And I love what they say in that about the fact that, you're putting work out into the world. That's the point it becomes real. And that's the point it means something totally different to the listener or the reader or whatever than it does to you. And I think that's so important. And especially true with music as well. Like what you're writing about isn't necessarily what I would hear if I'm listening to your song. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's where the alchemy is, isn't it? That's the magic. Where what you're saying, what you're thinking will speak to me in a totally different way, but it still speaks to me. I think that's so key.
There's a thing that I'm actively trying to do on this album, because a lot of my lyrics are very on the nose. There's not a lot of like metaphor in mine. You're like, oh, I wonder what she's saying. Normally it's like, that's what she's saying, and I'm trying to do less of that on this album so that I give the listener the opportunity to have their own experience and their own take on it. Because sometimes I do with my writing, I can create a little bit of a barrier between me and there, I think. So that's something that I'm playing with at the minute. So it's interesting you should say that because that's the thing I've really been focused on the past week with what I've been writing.
So what does that look like for you? Is that like becoming more abstract in what you're writing, or is it just rethinking how direct you're actually approaching lyrics?
Well, I mean, okay, so I'll give you a really crude example. I was thinking about why are my songs never on telly? Why are they never in films? So I was watching some TV program and the credits start running. And I read the music supervisor's name. And I'm like, I'll write it down. Then I find him on Instagram. I start chatting to him. We meet for a coffee. And I said, oh, this must be really annoying for you. People must do this all the time. And he said, nope. No artist has ever really taken that initiative.
Wow. Well done,
and I
you.
was like,
yeah.
Right. And we've now got this lovely friendship. And one thing he said to me very plainly, and when I said to him, how come I don't get my song synced in on a lot of television programs and stuff? And he said, just simply write. He was like, you're too specific with your lyrics. He was like, your songs are scene stealers. He was like, where would we put a chorus like ladies for babies, goats for love? And I was like, well, a film about bestiality. And then I hear my friend's music on television, but it's normally a love song or it's not as specific or as jarring and they don't take away from the scene.
Yeah.
So in a way, I was quite flattered. I was like, you can't sync this, I was quite flattered by it. Like,
scene stealing.
Poor. But because, if it means that my songs are, the scene stealers, then that's fine. But it's not just a money reason for why I want to make lyrics far less specific. It's just because I do think that it limits my reach. I do want to speak to more people. And I am going to be lacing in far more political lyrics on this one as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's brilliant. I jotted down some lyrics when I was prepping for this as well. There's, where would you have me go? I'm second generation, don't you know? I mean, it's a good example of that, something so specific. Like there's, so kind of, it can only mean one thing. And I think that's so key. But I think it's fascinating, like, because you do tackle those big subjects in your music, but you also transfer that into your kind of non-performing life as well, don't you? Like, you're one of the kind of artists that's out there at the moment who very visibly gives a shit. And I think there's a lot of people that aren't really doing that. Load of people, many of whom soon you would identify as being your peers who have platforms, and their silence is deafening at the moment, whether it's what's going on in Palestine, whether it's wider political context. And you've gone all in on that. You know, I've seen you chatting at the National March for Palestine. We chatted about before that. Obviously, you were speaking in Edinburgh recently, and you've been very kind of loud in your support of people who have been vilified in the press, thinking about the lads from Kneecap and things like that. What drives you to raise your voice at a time when other people are choosing not to?
I mean, I think I never want to be an artist who shames other artists or peer pressures them, because I do understand. I understand even more now, more than many people will realize how much artists had to risk. And I was always willing to do that. That's fine, you know. But I do empathize with artists who didn't want to speak out. And I think it ranges for many reasons. It was, real fear of being reprimanded by, losing their jobs and losing opportunities. And there was a very real risk of that. And it's true. We see it now. We've read the leaked letters. We all know the list of the names. Like, actually gets worse when you get deeper into it, but it's not a conversation for now.
No, of
And it's
course.
really gross. But there are artists that have been political in the past and are famous for it. And I think those ones, some of us are so surprised, like, and shocked and disappointed. Like, well, we're sad. People like Radiohead and people like U2, many people looked up to them, not just because of their music, but because of their political stance on things as well. And Radiohead will never receive another penny of my money, ever.
Yeah, there's a
I know
lot of
they
people
never.
saying that as well.
I find
Yeah.
them disingenuous. I am let down by them. And then there's artists like Brian Eno, who is an incredible person. Some of the things he's been doing as well are wonderful. The concert together for Palestine was a wonderful thing. And I have to say, it didn't feel like, because I have been to some of these events, this one did not feel like just a bunch of famous people getting together and like kissing each other's bums. It didn't feel like that. Yes, there were a bunch of very famous people. I met Richard Gere and a bunch of very famous people who have, in the past 2 years, and I'm talking all of the past 2 years, have been speaking out for the plight of the Palestinian people, and who are exhausted and who are knackered, and who many of them have already been threatened and reprimanded. And that night for us backstage, and after the big performance that everybody saw, it felt like we were all given a party to just kind of, because
Yeah.
we're knackered. There's so many of us who are knackered. I can't tell you what it meant for me to meet and dance and hang out with Francesca Albanese. It was incredible. And she's a
Phenomenal.
Hun. Yes, she's a badass and she does this and this and this. And she's an incredible human being, incredible human. But wasn't it nice to just see her, like, kick back, get a little bit too drunk like the rest of us? I caught her having hiccups at one point and we were shouting. She was there,
Love that.
a vape, and she had my vape. And I'm like, Francesca Albanese is also just a Hun, And it was,
Love that.
that night was incredible for that. But I have been to some evenings where it's, raising money for Palestine. There was one in particular in London, and I would never do it again. And I did make a complaint about it. It was just very celebrity and disingenuous.
So a virtue signaling sort of thing. Yeah.
And I think also with a bunch of my peers, a bunch of my pals, they don't want to speak out about politics because they find that it does look like it's virtue signaling. And they find that maybe I don't look honest here. I would say don't worry about that. Just, if you're
Yeah.
going to speak out, just educate yourself on the subject. Do actually go to demonstrations. Try and do a bit more. But there have been certain things that I've been to that have been, that was a bad one where it was all kind of like people were it was very distasteful, where there's photographs of celebrities with champagne like this. And I've never seen any of those any of those people on
As much as you like.
I've never seen any of them on a demonstration. I've never seen any of them do anything else, and it just, for that moment. And there is a beautiful thing in that the tide is changing, like everyone's saying, and there is people are less scared to speak out now. And so there are celebrities who have said nothing for 2 years who are speaking out now. I don't want to even bother talking about them for too long. Unfortunately, I think it is too little, too late, but there is still life. There is still a Gaza to be saved. There is still a Palestine to be saved. Not all hope is lost, even though it is already far too many people have died. If one person was killed, it was one person too many. It's disgusting and harrowing what has happened. But we'll have to have hope for the Palestinian people that there is a future ahead for them all, and that there is going to be justice, and that there's going to be accountability. So I haven't really got the time to start slagging off celebrities who've started to speak up now 2 years later.
Yeah, and even if it is too little and too late, it's not the time to shut them down because it's needed, isn't it? Like, we need more voices, definitely.
100% that.
Yeah, we chatted a little bit before you did the speech at London at the National Demo, and I was surprised at how nervous you were prior to that compared to other things that I've seen you kind of, do. How does it feel speaking at rallies, at demonstrations compared to performing?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying, because I think there's also, I was speaking to a great pal of mine who's also a musician, and she is one of the most powerful musicians on stage. And she hasn't been super vocal about Palestine. And I asked her why. And she said, because she's nervous, because she doesn't want to say the wrong thing. And she doesn't want to sound stupid. She's like, I'm just a musician. And I'm like, no, you're a citizen. She's a mammy. She's a citizen, sees what everybody else sees. And I think that sometimes I worry about sounding stupid because I'm not my brother. My brother's a journalist, and he is incredibly, he's far more educated and in the know of all the intricacies of this particular, I wouldn't even call it a conflict. It's not a conflict.
No, it's not.
Of what happens in the Middle East and blah, blah, blah. Even like the Nakba before October the 7th and blah, blah, blah. And so I sometimes get nervous speaking publicly because I don't want to say the wrong thing. And also because there's so much riding on it, I feel. And I want to say the right thing, and I want it to be powerful, and I want it to affect change. And I want to do the best that I can. And that scares the hell out of me. And but I've ended up at the past 3 ones I've spoken at, I think I'd bursting out crying. The one in Edinburgh, I just burst out crying. I couldn't, because there was this beautiful man. His name was George. I can't remember his surname. His name was George. He's 82 years old. And the week prior to that, I'd been outside of not Parliament, but the law courts in Edinburgh. Not the law courts.
Sheriff Court?
Yeah, I was outside there, and there was a bunch of us that got together, and there were people holding the famous placard which says, I oppose genocide and I support.
Yeah.
And it's mainly older people. And I've wanted to hold that sign because I also oppose genocide and I support action for Palestinians. And I really admire those people that have taken action. I really do. And they're non-violent, peaceful, good people. And the amount of times where an older person has said to me, no, you don't hold the sign. We do it. Because
that's amazing, isn't it?
I'm retired. I've got nothing to lose. No, you've got the world of traveling. So this
isn't that beautiful, though, that kind of collective action from a group of people who are like, it's our turn to stand up and this is what we can do. That isn't like that is. I'm not surprised you found that emotional and burst into tears. It's that kind of collective action, I think, is one of the most powerful things. And I think you burst into tears while speaking publicly. It's also giving permission to the people that are there to be outwardly upset. And I think that is vital as well. So honestly, it's massively appreciated. And it does make a difference when people with a platform stand up and speak. It really does.
Yeah, I think it does. I really do believe as soon as everybody stops talking about it, it's like we have given up, and that's a very scary time. So I am pleased that more people are speaking about Palestine now, more than they ever have.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned your brother Kareem. Randomly, when we first met, I realised that I was already following your brother on Instagram, and I think there's obviously a lot of publicity about his recent film. So Gaza Doctors Are Under Attack, which is phenomenal. Anyone who hasn't watched that should absolutely go and watch it. I find it really fascinating that both you and your brother are interested in the root cause of huge issues in the world and are trying to shine a light on it in very different ways. What got that kind of collective fire burning for both of you? Like, was there something in your childhood, do you think, that instilled that in you, that importance of speaking up, that importance of actually making a stand?
He's 7 years older, so he started it. And I generally did just copy whatever
So it's his fault.
what my cool big brother did. Like, he went to St. Martin's, he went to art school, he did loads of cool stuff. And I used to just like copy him, and I hope he doesn't, I won't let him listen to this because I just adore him and I idolized him and I would just copy him. And he started out at art school. I think he's an incredibly brilliant painter, beautiful oil paintings. And at some point he got into film at art school. And I don't know how he started. He first started on Time Team. That was his first TV job. It was for Time Team.
Love it. Is that the one where they kind of dig? Is that the archaeology one?
Oh, yeah, with
love
the
it.
Baldrick.
Love it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
That was his first telly job. And I think that I'll have to ask my brother Kareem. I don't know how he got into documentary filmmaking, especially the kind of stuff that he makes now. But I do think that, I'd be stupid to not mention that we're both Muslim. Our dad is from Pakistan.
Mhm.
And, I don't look at brown people and see them as other. I look at them and see them as exactly the same as me. And I think that might be a difference between me and some white people.
Yeah.
I think there may be a difference there. And I'm just being honest, is that when I hear about Muslims being persecuted, it terrifies me. Half my family are Muslim. And so I've always felt compelled to speak out for Muslim people, especially when they're being persecuted so much. And it's happening again right now. And I find it terrifying. And I just knew back then when my brother had come back, I think the first time he'd come back from Syria. And I didn't know about what was happening in Syria at the time. This is 2015. I think I released the album in 2016 and it's called Holiday Destination. But Karim comes back from that job. We meet at a cafe and he just can't eat. He's pushing his food around. Because of course you get traumatized by the things that you have to see when you go and work in certain places where there are horrible conflicts and the worst things happening in the world to people. He was becoming increasingly more irritated by me, sat opposite him at this cafe. And I'm, what's wrong? And he's like, just shut up. I'm sick of it. And he really snaps at me. He's like, listen, go and do something important. You know what I mean? Like, this is happening here. You didn't even know about this happening in Syria, you idiot. Really was horrible.
Yeah, proper trauma there, though.
And then I thought, yeah, he's got a point. He's got a point. And it wasn't front page news what was happening. And so then I decided that how can I use my art form like my brother does? How can I properly utilize mine? And so I made Holiday Destination. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that discussion with my brother where he shouted at me over in a cafe in Stoke Newington,
Yeah, I love that. I think it's fascinating that he started off as a painter as well. That kind of like real artistic roots of it. And I think whether it's documentary, whether it's you writing specific songs, speaking at a demo, I think the roots of all of it is storytelling, isn't it? It's about using whatever medium you have. And like you said, whatever, works for you is different to what works for Kareem, which is different to what works for me or whoever. But I think that thing of like figuring out how you can tell a story and actually engage people is huge.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I don't mean, there is that phrase and a bit humanizing the dehumanized.
Mm-hmm.
Always. And it just the whole power of that. There was a song that I wrote after seeing a documentary film by a man in Hull, and his name is Sean McAllister, and it's called A Syrian Love Story. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I've not.
Incredible,
No.
and it shows what the conflict did to one family. It focuses on one family, and it was just heartbreaking and a beautiful film. But in it featured the mother, whose name was Ragda, and I ended up writing a song about her, and it's called Mother
Wow.
Fighter, and it's on Holiday Destination. And Sean McAllister, the director, hears it. He then sends it to Ragda. And Ragda and I then have a relationship for a few years. I remember feeling like oh yeah. I was just really, really like, it was like the one day I felt quite, not proud, but I felt like I did a good job. And then she died a few years later, but I was always,
Oh, sure.
we only spoke like 2 months before she died. But I remember like how much it meant to her that her story was being told. And that's the thing. I think people want you to tell their stories. Like, please,
Yeah,
please know that we were here and that this happened and don't forget about
totally.
this. And so that act of storytelling and humanizing the dehumanized, especially when just numbers are being bandied around and not individual names, or not speaking about, oh, the 40,000 children. This one little girl was somebody's world, and it's,
Totally.
yeah,
Totally.
I think there is that.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Like that connection with, is it Ragda? Did you say her
Yeah.
name was? Yeah, it's worth more than any kind of good press or kind of, anything else. That's what it's about, isn't it? That's that direct connection. I think it's huge, and that thing you say about names rather than numbers is so important. I wrote a thing a little while back about what was going on in Palestine and linked it back to my big brother died when he was 2 and I was just 6 months, and actually the fallout of that like rumbles on to this day. Do you know what I mean? That is a hugely pivotal part of my story, my mum's story, my dad's when he was alive. And I think the loss of one little boy, it's just been catastrophic. And to think that that has gone on, I think I read a thing this morning saying that in September, Israel killed a child every hour
Yeah.
in Gaza, every hour. And you're like, every child that dies is having that same rumbled on, that kind of, that's a life, that's a universe, isn't it? And it's so important to remember that they're not just numbers.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So important. Yeah. It's
I
mad.
think I find it, because I see you're a wordsmith, you're a poet, and I'm a wordsmith of sorts. Like, I use words
Yeah,
for
you are,
my job.
definitely.
One of the things I find most difficult right now is not being able to find words, you know?
I've not written for months, to be honest, Nadine, like that kind of stuff. I'm just not in that kind of space. I can't sit down and focus on doing that at the minute. It will come back at some point, but right now, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But then there are
Just
words which are
never.
so important, when it's like how important words can be as well, which just resonate and just really sinking into like the depths of you, into your tummy. There was a singer at Together for Palestine. Oh, everybody's name's Naya Barghouti, and she's a Palestinian singer. She's incredible, also very funny. And sang, she used one of the poems, and it's called, oh, I always talk about it. If I must die.
Oh, it's incredible.
But
Yeah.
but they're like, yeah. Well, whenever I find myself going, when I read and people go, I have no words left, I'm like, find them, try harder.
Yeah.
You need to use words. They are
Totally.
so important.
And that was by the poet, was it Rifat Al Arir? Maybe? But he was killed, wasn't he? The poet who
Yeah,
wrote that was killed at the
he was
start of this.
killed. His family were killed. His family's children were killed. I can find it really quickly. I mean, it just, eh,
It's incredible. And I think that epitomizes so much of this conflict. I think it's a real example of the power of poetry, and it's written in quite a direct way. There's nothing overly abstract about it.
you
It's
got
just,
it.
yeah,
It was Rafat Alaria.
yeah, yeah, incredible. Interesting. You mentioned there about, part of it, this potentially being you not seeing people as other. And I think just to come back to that, I think we are sitting at a time when the political machine, the press, are doing all they can to convince people to see people as other and to other people, whether that's kind of the sort of flag shagging reform law, whether that's, just the reports that have been actually plastered across front page in the newspaper. Abby and I walked through the hospital yesterday and we saw some headlines, and it was appalling just
You
how
watched me
divisive
where?
they were. We were just walking through the hospital and past a newsagent, and there was just headlines, and it was like, can't remember, it was something along the lines of, Starmer says if you're anti-immigration, you're racist. And it's like just these messages that are just being drummed into people that are just divisive. And they're all about othering people, aren't they?
It's the same thing. They've done it for years, divide and conquer. So it's like
Totally.
people are suffering. But one thing I really, really despise, and I see a bunch of my friends doing it, and I'm calling them out for it, punching down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
There was some guy who went undercover the other day at that.
I saw it. That guy Nico.
I mean, I don't know how I feel about him doing that either. I don't know. But, and gosh, there's so many Geordies saying really bad things. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, shh.
Giving us a bad name.
Stop doing it. Shut your mouth, man, you dafties. And It was the same with Brexit as well. I remember, like, especially people attacking people from Sunderland, working class people from very poor working class people from Sunderland and from the Northeast. And
Mm.
they're not the problem. You know what I mean? And it's like, if you keep punching down at them, the divide is only going to get, and everybody is missing the point. They are being lied to. These are very vulnerable people in society as well, who have not had the privilege that I have had. Many people I know have had, the ones who I can see punching down, who have not had the luxury of your education, who have not had the luxury of your life, like many things in your life. And then you're just laughing at them. Oh, no teeth, this, and oh, they can't spell, and oh, look at the state of them.
Yeah.
I don't think that fixes anything. I really
No, it doesn't. And it's not looking at the root cause, is it? Totally. I did a podcast on another podcast that I do, the Wee Sparrow Poetry podcast, with an amazing guy called Craig Houston, who's a poet, but he doesn't write poetry to be published. He writes it and he uses it as a tool to work with disadvantaged youths and people that are going through a youth justice system. And we spoke a lot about toxic masculinity. And it totally took me aback because he pulled me up straight away for using the phrase. And he said, be really careful how you use that. He said, of course it's a thing and it exists. But the way that a lot of us speak about it, we're ignoring the fact that a lot of the people who are perpetrating it and who are displaying it are absolutely, it's symptomatic of a completely broken system in a culture, in a world that most of us can't even imagine coming through. So it's that thing of let's not punch down, let's look at what are the systems, what are the mechanisms that are making that a feasible thing to think and believe in the first place. I think that's so important, isn't it?
And you know
so
who
important.
speaks quite eloquently about exactly what you just said? Sam Fender.
Really?
There's a good Geordie.
See, there you go, bringing Geordie level back up again.
He speaks
Yeah, I bet he does actually.
exactly like that. I'm a huge admirer of Sam Fender. He
Okay.
speaks about,
Yeah, I've not heard him speak about stuff like that. I'll dig some of that out for sure.
yeah,
Definitely.
and also, I mean, a few years ago, there's a lyric in his song about bombs being dropped on Gaza.
Okay.
He hasn't
Yeah.
he just started speaking about it, but I do know there is a man in Newcastle, and I think it is the same man from North Shields, who is like this renowned socialist badass, this older guy. And I think he's been a kind of a mentor of sorts over the years to,
I love it.
yeah, he's a good one. And Sam plays these huge arenas, and he's been talking about Palestine at his shows, and I don't know how much I can say about it, but also was threatened, and people tried to
Really?
reprimand him too, even Sam Fender, who's huge.
Yeah, he's got a massive platform, doesn't he? Definitely. But it was fascinating when I was like looking back over some of your stuff before this, like the kind of themes in Holiday Destination, which is what, 8 years old? Something like that? 9 years old? Are so relevant now. It was like Trump was coming into power. It's about nationalism, identity. And you're like, how are we still at a point where that's the thing? And 10 years before that, they still would have been relevant. But, that album could have been written now when you listen to a lot of the things that you're
I mean, one
talking
of the
about.
things that's, I was trying to explain it to my boyfriend recently, but I have this like deep kind of fear in my belly at the minute, and it's for my family, not just what is happening in Gaza as well, but there is also, I mean, that's such a deep collective sadness around because of that anyways. And also, if people think that what's happening over there doesn't affect them over here, then they are entirely wrong. Entirely wrong. You can
Agreed.
see how it's affecting us as well. But two of my Pakistani cousins I spoke to recently, both of them have little girls, and both of them are really scared. They're really, really scared. And I'm like, oh no, it can't be that bad, But obviously I'm a very white passing Muslim and my cousins aren't.
Okay.
And they have a very, very different experience to what I have. And one of them is saying, you know what, if it gets worse, I'm worried about my daughter. And I'm speaking to my husband and I'm saying to him, maybe we do move back to Lahore. Maybe we do go to Pakistan. She was born there. She's my cousin's wife, but my cousin, he was born here. He'd be so out of place in Pakistan. He would be so westernized. He would not enjoy it. I think he does enjoy visiting, but he's English, he was born here.
Yeah.
She was born in Pakistan, and she goes, I don't want my little girl to be brought up here. And I'm seeing this and I'm seeing this and I'm terrified. And my cousin who lives in Tunbridge Wells, she's terrified. She has 2 twin girls and she's saying, it's palpable. The tension and the racism and the fear is palpable and it's very real. It's very, very real. And it's gotten to a point when it's getting darker at nights now. And I rang me dad, and my dad always goes for a walk on an evening. And I had to ring him and say, like, Dad, can you I don't want you going out when it's too dark. Go out earlier. I don't want to scare my
Isn't
dad.
that
My dad lives in Sunderland, and I'm terrified.
that is terrifying, and it's that so damaging, isn't it? Like fear is just it's one of the worst things, and that is yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. Like that's properly horrendous. What do you like? What do you do if you do anything, and if you're able to stop yourself feeling just utterly despondent? You know, with what's going on. Obviously, you're taking action, but are there sort of self care things that you do to actively be okay with this stuff?
Can't just say tequila, can I?
You can if you want. Yeah, it works.
No, I mean, I think that connection is vitally important. I think that there are times when honestly, when I do go to a demonstration, I do leave every single bloody time with my batteries recharged, with my spirit lifted, because you do feel downtrodden and hopeless,
Yeah.
helpless and hopeless, you know. And I think being amongst a bunch of people, seeing that 82-year-old man, George, sat there in the square with his sign. And I'm like, and at the demonstration in Edinburgh, down by the foot of the mound the other week, there was a young lass spoke. I don't remember her name. I think she's 9 years old, and she was incredible,
Mm.
incredible. And she obviously had me in bits as well. But I think that, you know, what the times just kind of doom scrolling and da 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 da, very important things to be seeing and not to be avoiding these devastating videos, you know, a genocide being live streamed on your phone. Watch it. But I have to be aware that it doesn't, I'm not, I'm only going to work at my best when I'm at my best, you know, and I think just being around other people, it does, who, who are passionate and who are not willing to be ground down and to submit. I find that incredibly important right now.
Yeah, there's strength in numbers there.
Yeah, and it does bring me a bit of solace and excitement, you know, at the
Mhm.
same time. Like, no, we're not going to let the bastards grind us down. No way. No
Yeah,
way.
yeah, definitely.
Firm believer in people power.
Yeah, absolutely agree. That thing about doom scrolling is interesting. I was chatting at home recently about sort of friends who aren't on social media, and in some ways, I think that's brilliant. Like we all waste too much time on social media, but when you chat to them about big things that matter, it becomes apparent that often they don't know the reality of what's going on. They've got like BBC News at 10's view on the world. So it's like, it's
Well, that's
fascinating. Just yeah, no understanding of kind of the extent of what's happening. And it's really divisive. It's hard to spend time with a group of people who are maybe just not engaged, not interested, don't think it's that bad. Like you said, don't think it affects them. So I think it's so important to have the conversations and to actually engage with it and watch it because it's,
you.
you know, we owe it to the people that are suffering to actually witness it.
Yeah, exactly. Like bear witness.
Yeah.
And I showed my dad. Oh, and I regret it. I showed him some videos on
Mm.
Instagram, of the reality of what it's in
Sure.
Gaza.
Yeah.
And he had never seen any of those. He knew the situation was dire
Mm.
over there. He knew how bad it was, but he had never seen these images. And he was just bursting into tears, and he was going, "No, I can't, no, 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 no."
Oh.
And it is because also he's an older man as well. And I thought, you know, I hope I'm not becoming desensitized to these images, but how it really
Mm.
affected him to his core, because he doesn't see them. And so,
Yeah.
you know, and he was like, "Where do I donate my money?" I was like, "Okay, yeah, this is what we do, Dad, blah, blah, blah." But I think you're right. Some of those pals, yes, it must be definitely not great for your mental health on a whole social media. But the amount of news which is coming out of there, unbiased, real news
Mhm.
is coming out of there is important for us to bear witness to. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So you spoke there about that kind of strength in numbers, community, you know, and I think when it comes to art, like the importance of collaboration and working together is key. And I think one of the things that comes out of horrific times like we're going through just now is decent art, you know, good music, people that do engage with it and do so on a level that actually speaks to the masses. I think is really important. Who's out there at the moment doing stuff that you are interested in? Who's got a voice that you're interested in hearing? You mentioned Sam Fender earlier on. Any other artists, poets, novelists that you're enjoying?
Who have like a political rhetoric present.
Just generally, yeah.
I would say that it's very difficult. It's really difficult, right, to write fucking great political song that's also cool as fuck.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
not to
Yeah.
be like, this is the problem sometimes with me where like, I really hate being earnest in my work. And I want to be daft and silly and I want it to sound as cool as fuck as it can. And sometimes I'm writing something and I'm like, oh, even though
Yeah.
it's a very
Second your mouth.
political message, but I'm like, oh, how can I make that sexier? And I think that Macklemore did it so well. Heinz Hall, that
Heinz
song.
Hall. Amazing.
It
Yeah. Yeah.
does. I mean, I play it on my way to demonstrations, like the people they vote. I'm like, and it's also the tempo of it. I'm fucking stomping on my bloody way out, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
let's go, you fucks. When I hear that, I'm like, it rallies people together. It's. I think that
Love
song
it.
is
Love it.
incredible, and how it celebrates the students as well at that time.
And that was early, wasn't it? Like in this whole thing that's happening right now. Yeah.
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 Definitely.
But still, that tune, can somebody else? I mean, I've tried, but I'm not doing a very good job of it. So I really want young fathers to hurry the fuck up and write one.
Yeah.
Which I think they would do it very,
They could do it well.
they
They
could
could
do
do
it
anything
very
well.
well.
Definitely.
No, but yeah, it's just that song is the one that is my
Definitely.
go-to.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that there's like, I think you're a great example as well of someone who's obviously tackling it directly in some work, but like it doesn't have to be, we're not trying to ask people to rewrite Billy Bragg songs about politics. It can be, you've got your work and then you've got your voice. And I think Kneecap do that really well, don't they? It's not like everyone, they still manage to be silly and daft,
Yeah.
whilst getting a really important message across. And I think that's so important just now as well. Definitely. So what's next for you? You mentioned you've got a Heartbreak album coming up. What's, yeah.
Heartbreak album that I wrote about my boyfriend that I'm now with, and we're making it together, which is
Love
very
it.
funny. Very, very.
Have you got a bit, is the like final track, a big sort of reunion song, like, and
But
off you
no, but
go,
the
soaring into the
freaking
sunset?
arsehole. So we were both writing songs about each other when we broke up. And mine were like, oh, there's some which will never see the light of day. There's one which was just like, eh. There was one which was just, the lyric is horrible, but it was something like, can we speak of second chances? Can we romanticize romances? I'm the second greatest dancer after you, blah, 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 blah. And it's all blah, 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 blah. And I'm writing ones like that. And then he wrote one about me called Ball and Chain. It just goes down, 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 ball and chain. That's not, and he laughs about, we both laugh about it a lot now. And he's like, no, I'm the ball and chain. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm your ball and chain. I'm like, you've just changed that lyric, mate. I heard the first.
Yeah.
But
That's not what he's saying. That's not what he's
that's
saying.
how is it. But it's, I don't know. I think I don't think I could ever date anybody who's not a creative. I love that we're able to, I love that we both have this lovely thing to go to express ourselves. I think I feel very lucky
It's important.
to be
Yeah,
an
definitely.
artist where it's like I have a space to put all of this stuff, and and to exercise all of those emotions. And so yeah, I'm still doing more writing right now, and I'm really enjoying it. For the first time ever, I worked with the same producer on all 5 albums, and I decided not to work with him on this one. And so it's taken me longer because I really needed to find my confidence, because I felt like kind of conditioned that I couldn't do it without him. That's not his fault.
Okay.
That's not his fault. He's a really good man. But I very quickly realized I had all my band in the studio the other week, and I was like, oh no, I'm good at what I do, and I can do this. So it's taken a little bit longer, but it's so damn rewarding,
Oh, I love that.
So it's just more of that.
Brilliant. So still writing. So when's that album coming out? How far into the future have we got
Yeah,
to look? $1 million question. Yeah. Good.
it
I'll look forward to that.
has to be out next year.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
has to, because these things go in cycles as well, and I need, in order to tour, which is where musicians predominantly make their bread and butter. In order to tour, I need new material. And also I love being on tour. It keeps me, honestly, it does. People think the opposite, but it keeps me out of trouble. It
Love
really.
that. And you've got some tour dates coming up with Self-Esteem? Is that right?
Self-Esteem's this year. I've got like 8 with her. She's an old pal of mine. And so it's really nice to share a stage with my pal, and has a very, very different audience to mine. Far more gay men in her audience than I ever have at mine. And to this day, I'm still puzzled why the hell they've not been to mine yet. I'm like, excuse me.
Yeah.
And I think they're just going to be really, really joyous gigs. And so I'm not going to have it's not going to be an overtly political set like I have been doing over the summer. I've been using like images by, there's even a picture of his on the wall there. Cold War Steve, the satire
I love Cold War
artist.
Steve, yeah.
Incredible man. He made us some great images for backdrops for our shows. And so they were hugely political, the shows. And we had this really fucking powerful moment at the end where we have the voice of Bizan Auda, the young Palestinian journalist.
Yeah, she's incredible.
We made like an audio of her speaking. And so the shows were very emotional in that sense. But I think with the Self-Esteem tour, they're not going to be, they're half an hour, and I'm just going to make them joyous and camp.
That. Joyous and camp.
Which is a big part of me, really. I'm not always this very serious, like,
Yeah, but I think that's important. Like, yeah, you've got to get balance. And actually that makes, when you do get serious and you do say the deep stuff, the meaningful stuff, it makes it more powerful. Definitely. Listen, huge thank you for doing this. I massively appreciate it. Guest number 1, set the bar high. Yeah, good luck with the tour. And keep speaking out, honestly. It's massively appreciated and it's totally needed as well. So cheers, Nadine.
Thanks, pal.